Hi, and thank you for joining our CoMeet Recruiter training. Today we're going to be covering the following topics. We'll see how to add a new position and set up the following settings: the workflow and step types, how to set up the scorecard and add a description, see the hiring team, configure the position settings, how to work with openings, what we'll see under the coordination tab, and how to publish a position and change and update the position status. So to get started with opening up a position, we're going to go to the blue plus sign at the top of the screen, click and choose position. The first screen that pops up is the settings for the position. We're going to give it a position name. You can also mark this position as discrete. In this case, the position won't be published and will also be available internally only to the position's hiring team. We're going to choose a hiring manager. Each position can have only one hiring manager. Our recruiter will stay Jane Fine. We can also add a recruiting assistant or coordinator. We'll talk about that a little later on. When you're getting started with CoMeet, you'll have the option to start with CoMeet's basic template. If you've already worked with CoMeet for quite a while, any one of your positions has been saved automatically as a position template. In this case, you'll be able to choose it and duplicate the workflow, description, and hiring team. Let's start out with our basic template. We'll click Add. The first thing that pops up is the position email address. I'm going to go ahead and close it. We'll talk about that later on. Our first tab is the workflow tab. The workflow is the process that a candidate needs to go through in order to be accepted for this position at your company. We can see that we've started out with a basic CoMeet, CV screen recruiter, phone screen recruiter, interview manager, interview management, reference call, and offer. And now, as you'll see, we can have the option to edit it. We can remove steps with the X at the top right corner. We can add additional steps by hovering between two steps and clicking Add Step. We can also connect two parallel steps to happen at the same time without being dependent on each other. For example, a reference call and a management interview. Let's go into a little bit more detail and start out with the CV screen recruiter. In a lot of cases, this will be the first step in your hiring process. At the name here, you have a drop down with all of the different names available for the different steps in your hiring process if you want to add a new step. If you have one that's not in this drop down, you can contact your admin or owner and they can add it for you. Next, we have the type step. Okay, we have 4 different types of steps. We have the go, no go, which essentially decides if a candidate has passed the step or not. A good example is a CV screen. We have the interview step. The interview step allows you to schedule the meeting and the interview with the candidate and fill in an interview evaluation. We have the administrative step type, which is for completing different administrative tasks, for example, sending a home assignment. And we have the offer step, which is a bit more advanced, and we'll talk about it later on. Once you've chosen the name of your step and the type of your step, you can set up the participants. In this example, we've chosen Jane to be the recruiter, so she has been assigned this step. We can add additional participants if we'd like. If we want to add Amy, another fellow recruiter, to screen this candidate in this process, we can do that. Keep in mind that you have 2 participants on a go, no go step. The first one to mark their decision in the system will move the candidate to the next step. Let's keep Jane here for now. You'll see that all of the steps have the free text field called instructions to teammates. Next, we've set up another step called CV Screen Manager. Our manager is Adam Smith. So now that we're keeping this name, let's change it back to him as the participant. It's also going to be a go, no go step. Our third step here is a phone screen. A phone screen is an interview step because we'd like to schedule it with our candidate and fill in an interview evaluation. Once you have the interview step selected, you'll see that you have a new drop-down allowing you to choose what kind of interview this is going to be. It can be a phone, in-person, or video interview. This will affect the calendar invite and email template that the candidate will receive. You can also set up the duration here and decide if you want to add a Zoom meeting link to this specific step. At the bottom here, you'll see that we have a checkbox marked for Scheduled by Recruiting Assistant. You have the option to assign the tasks of recruiting assistant to someone from your hiring team, and they will be in charge of scheduling all of the different interview steps with candidates. They'll receive these as tasks in their home screen. If you're not using a recruiting assistant in this hiring team, each participant in the workflow will receive their own task to schedule their interviews. If you have a specific step with an interviewer that wants to schedule their own interviews, you can remove the checkbox for that specific step. Once you're finished setting this up, click Save. You'll also notice that for interview steps, we have a field instructions to candidates. Here you have the option in a free text field to ask candidates to prepare examples of their achievements or prepare any kind of information for their interview. This field will be included in the email templates that you send out to candidates according to the configuration on your end. Now that we've set up the workflow, we can see that we have the flow that we wanted. Interview manager, interview management, let's choose someone else from our management team, for example, Mark. Our recruiter will do the reference call. We've noticed that we've connected these as parallel steps. We can also hover over it. We'll have a small blue arrow separating them if we want to go back. And our recommendation is for the offer step to make it administrative to get started before you're ready to use the more advanced features. Once our workflow is ready, we're ready to move on to the scorecard. The scorecard is a really great tool in CoMeet, allowing you to rank candidates on a scale of 1 to 5 for different skills and qualities that you're looking for. You'll see that the system comes with a predefined list. This list can be edited or specific ones can be removed, and at the bottom you can add your own. Each position has their own scorecard that can be configured. And the nice thing about this tool is once used by your interviews and hiring managers, each candidate will receive an average score that will appear in their candidate card, giving you another tool for assessment of your candidates. Moving on to the description tab. This is a really important tab because we're going to set up all of the relevant details for this position that will be relevant for publishing it, posting it on job boards, and using these fields for reportings as well. So the name of our position is Senior Front-End Developer. We can also change a public name to be shown externally. Our position ID is an optional field that you can fill in if you're using this field. And the CoMeet position ID is an auto-generated ID that can't be changed. The location needs to be selected for each position. This is a field that needs to be filled in order to post this position on different job boards. We have the field to mark if this is a position that you can work from home. This will also be published on relevant job boards that support this field. Under employment, we're going to choose full-time. Department, we'll choose engineering. Seniority, we're going to choose senior. And employment type, we'll choose headcount. You'll see that we have a salary range field here as well. This is a locked field, meaning it's permission-based. And on a default, the system will only show this field to position recruiters. You can add other people to view this field according to the permissions in your settings. If you're hiring in the US, you'll have the EEO category that you can choose from. And these different fields, called position fields, can also be customized and added to. So in this example, we see that we've added another field. It's locked. It's an internal field and not public. And here we'll choose the level of experience that we're looking for in this type of position. Let's mark 5+ years. Scrolling down, we'll have the position description fields. The default is description and requirements. We can add additional fields according to our needs, for example, benefits. And we have an internal field called brief to team, where we can enter different notes and comments that our hiring team will see while interviewing candidates. Our recommendation is to click add and right click and choose paste as plain text, allowing the formatting to not be copied in. In this description, I'm going to edit it, remove the title here, and copy down the requirements to the relevant field. I'll click add. I can delete all of this. And our brief to team will go here. You'll notice that you have different editing tools here at the bottom. You can select the text and set it up as bullet points. Okay, make sure that you've edited this text and approved it internally. Just going to move this to the right field to brief the team. Okay, there we go. So now that we finish up filling our description, okay, we have all the details needed. We can now move on to the position hiring team. This is the icon over here. When you click it, you'll see all the teammates that have a role in the workflow that we've set up. Adam is our hiring manager, Jane is the recruiter, and Mark is an interviewer. So you'll see here that there are different roles on a position level, and when clicking, you'll see the full options. Let's go over them together. The recruiter has full access to this position, and they receive auto tasks. A send notification. This is a type of task that is assigned to a teammate in order to send rejection emails to candidates and sources. And we have the proceed with candidate task, that this is assigned to the recruiter in case an interviewer that does not have permission to reject a candidate rejects. And then the final decision will go back to the recruiter deciding if to move forward with his candidate or not. We have the recruiting coordinator. This is relevant for large organizations. The coordinator has full access to the position except for managing permissions. And we have the recruiting assistant permission that we talked about before. The recruiting assistant will receive the auto task to schedule all interviews. You'll notice that you can add the recruiting assistant role to the recruiter as well, or to other teammates. Going back to here, we covered the 3 permissions on a position level for the recruiting team, and we have the non-recruiting position permissions. The hiring manager. The hiring manager, as mentioned, can only be 1 per role. He has full access to the position except for publishing and sourcing. We have the manager permission for someone that can see and edit candidates, and an interviewer. The interviewer will be assigned as a default to anyone who has a role in the workflow. The system allows interviewers to schedule their own interviews and submit an interview evaluation, but you'll notice that an interviewer will not have access to previous evaluations before submitting their own evaluation. We wanted to give the option to interviewers to go into interviews without any kind of predispositions about the candidates and give their opinion. We also have the viewer permission. The viewer permission allows to view all the candidates in the position. If you would like an interviewer to be able to view the previous evaluations, you can add this to that specific teammate. If you want to add anybody else to this position so they can view the position and the candidates, but not necessarily have a role, you can click here, choose them from the list, and decide what kind of permission you would like to give them when adding them to the position. Next, we're going to talk about position settings. You can see it here at the cogwheel. And here we have different settings for the position. If you're going to be sharing this position on different social media platforms, you have the option to choose a position image that will be shown when sharing the position. If you're not using the position image, the default will be the company logo selected by your admin or owner. Below, we have the questionnaires feature, which we'll talk about later on. And we have the settings for the referral, salary details, and candidate pool. The referral bonus to employees, once set up by your admin and owner, you'll be able to use the company default or set a specific bonus for this position. You'll also have the option to decide that this position will not be related to a bonus for your employees. As mentioned before, salary details in a position, including salary range, salary expectations, and offer details, will be on a default available only to the position recruiters. You can add the hiring manager, coordinators, or position managers to view these fields as well. Next, we have the candidate pool option. This allows us to create a candidate pool, meaning it can be an active or non-active position that we're transferring candidates to until we have something relevant in our openings to offer them. If you'd like to mark this as a candidate pool, you'll click on the checkbox. You'll see that there's an icon in your position list marking this as a pool position. And it's important to note that pool positions will not appear in a report and will not generate tasks and notifications. This can be useful for many cases, candidates that you don't have an opening currently for them and you'd like to be in touch with them later on, or candidates that have advanced before hiring someone else. It's completely up to you how to use this feature. You also have the option to import candidates. If you have past candidates from different positions that you'd like to import to the system, you can do this via CSV file. If you have any questions about that, you can contact our support team. Scrolling back to our position tabs, we're going to talk about openings. When you open a new position in CoMeet, as a default, one opening will open up with the open date that you've opened the position on and an expected hire date of 60 days forward, giving you some kind of KPI or goal for yourself. If you'd like to edit this opening, you can click on it and choose the edit button. This will allow you to give different opening dates if this is a future opening or an opening that you've been working on, let's say from the beginning of January. And you can choose the expected hire date that matches your goals and KPIs. Let's say this is a position that is going to take a little bit longer to hire. You can mark the 31st of March, giving it an 89 days period. You can choose the reason for this opening, if it's a new replacement or temporary replacement, and you can click Save. Notice that you have the option to delete an opening. In this case, we recommend to delete an opening only if it's been added by mistake. If you've worked on an opening and have decided not to hire for this position, our recommendation is to choose Close and Filled, so it will appear in reportings and you'll be able to see the work that you've done on this position. If you need to add another opening because you have several openings for this position, or you've made a hire and now you'd like to make a new one, you'll click Add Opening. You'll be able to fill in the relevant details, open date, expected date, and the reason. The coordination tab for now is empty since we don't have any candidates in process for this position yet. But here later on, once you start working on the position, you'll have a list of all the candidates in process set up by the step, and all of the different names will be clickable, taking you to the candidate card. The sources tab is also very important. We'll talk about this when we talk about sources. Now let's look at two other status bars that we have here. We have the published and the status. Right now, since we've just opened the position, it has not yet been published on our website. When we click here, we'll have a few options available. We'll be able to publish this position on our career site. If we've set up any automatic posting of job boards, this position will be published on those as well. We have the published restricted option, meaning this position will be published on our career site, but will be limited internally. We can choose to keep this position unpublished, or as we saw before in the beginning, we can make this a discrete position. Let's publish our position. Once we publish our position, you'll see that you have a new icon here, a little arrow, and this will open up your career website, allowing you to view the position and see how it looks like to candidates that are going to apply. We have the status of the position. As mentioned, we've opened this position, so the status is currently open. We can choose to put this position on hold if we've decided to put a pause or a freeze on the hiring process. If we move this position to be on hold, all candidates in this position will be changed to on hold in terms of their status. The position won't be published anymore, and the opening that you have will be closed. If you close the position because you are no longer hiring for it, all the candidates will be moved to rejected. There'll be a system notification allowing you to notify candidates and sources that this position has been closed, and the opening will be closed as well. The option to delete a position should only be used if you've added a position by mistake. In this case, the position will be deleted from the system. We will not be able to find this information, and it won't appear in reports. So make sure to use this only if needed. That covers opening up a position for today. Thanks so much for joining us, and see you again soon.